Hi, Rich Carrubba for bowlingball.com. I want to talk about something that I think has of interest to every bowler in America, all skill levels, so everyone, and that is how to understand the USBC Red Pattern, the lane condition. And that is your typical house conditions. And let's talk a little bit about what it is, and maybe I can give you, excuse me, develop some background information, or a little bit of information, what to expect when you go to the center and you bowl on your normal house conditions. And that applies for tournament play, league play, and what have you. To understand the red pattern, and that's what it's referred to by USBC, is simply understand that it yields the highest pace of scoring of all patterns sanctioned by USBC. That includes the blue pattern, the white pattern, or any PBA Experience League patterns that you might know about or have seen in tournament use, for example, and so on. Now, the red pattern has a high concentration of oil or a volume of oil applied to the center portion of the lane. Up from the foul line, maybe just past the arrows, perhaps up to 20 feet in distance, and across the lane, the majority of buildup is between the second arrow on both sides of the lane toward the center, with probably more between the third arrows on both sides of the lane toward the center. So it could be kind of tapered, or it could be just a straight flat pattern with a high volume of oil in the middle. We sometimes refer to these house conditions as wet dry, or a block pattern, or over under. You hear those phrases or terms periodically, and it simply means there's a great concentration of oil in the middle. It could be 20 to 40 units. There's no real precise amount of volume of oil that you must apply, or the lane people have to apply or not have to apply. Generally, a house condition can be pretty much whatever the people want, whatever the bowling center wants. And typically they like to see high paces of scoring. So you see a very easy condition with less oil to the edges and more in the middle. And what does that mean? Well, it gives you the greatest forgiveness if you line up correctly initially. If you miss your target toward the inside of the lane, then the ball's going to slide further and it'll hold and hit the pocket. And if you're lined up initially correctly, and you miss wide of your target, or in other words, toward the edges of the lane, the ball will hook back quicker, it'll respond quicker in the drier boards, and you'll also hit the pocket. The more you hit the pocket, the greater opportunity for strikes. So that's how those house patterns help the general bowler. And there's no real distance that is prescribed by USBC. So you typically see house patterns anywhere where the lane machine stops buffing in and applying oil to the surface of the lane and leaves the back ends dry, from about 35 feet distance from the foul line down to the head pin at 60 feet, or up to 45 feet distance. Now, the longer the distance, the more narrow and the straighter up the lane typically you have to go. You can't get the ball quite as wide unless maybe you're a real power player. Some of the bowling balls are more forgiving. But none of those, typically the shorter the distance of the oil, the more forgiveness to the wide toward the edge of the lane you can get, and your ball has a greater distance on dry boards to hook at the angle it's going to hook at and still hit the pocket. Okay. Anyway, the red pattern basically is very versatile. Now the other patterns, if the houses want to put up a competitive or a more difficult scoring condition, like for a tournament, for example, then they will. It could be a white pattern or blue pattern. But those conditions don't have as much of a buildup of oil in the center compared to the edges of the lane. So once again, your red pattern is your typical house condition. There's no real requirements or specifications by USBC as to how much oil there should be on the lane surface. But typically you'll see a lot more in the center of the lane. Usually it's a good place to start lining up around the second arrow on both sides of the lane and make your adjustments from there. We hope some of this information helps you. And if you're trying to find information about the lane patterns and what you can do in selecting bowling balls, you've got our perfect scale feature on our homepage here at bowlingball.com. Check that. It gives you ways to compare the latest bowling balls on the market. We hope some of this information helps. We thank you for visiting today. Our store's open 24 hours a day. Easy to follow the online order instructions if you find something you wish to purchase. And ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for visiting today at bowlingball.com.